We got a lot of changes coming to Path of Exile for the new Curse of the Allflame League, especially with spells and assassin. But what seemed to kind of fly under everyone's radar were the changes to Inquisitor's Fanaticism Ascendancy, as well as the new Instruments of Justice node that makes your spells crit equal to your weapon crit, as well as significant buffs to Flame Blast. To say these changes are overpowered would be an understatement, as I can easily get to 100% spell crit with Flame Blast with just these two nodes and 4 or 5 power charges. Now, I know what you're thinking. Flame Blast is an old skill that everyone knows about and people find it boring by now. But I'd bet you'd never tried it like this. Normally with Flame Blast, it's kind of annoying to play because you have to hold the channel and then release the button to do damage. But they added this transfigured version to the game a while ago called Celerity, which works completely different. And even though it has less stages and AoE, it allows us to spam cast by just holding the button down and it automatically releases, making it a lot easier to play, just like any other self cast spell in the game. I thought this would be the perfect combination with Inquisitor's new changes to Fanaticism, as the buff basically solves all of the problems with Flame Blast. For those who are unaware, Fanaticism comes from this node on the Inquisitor Ascendancy, which used to give a charge after using an attack once every second, and after reaching 4 charges, you get a buff for 75% increased AoE, 75% less mana costs, and 75% increased cast speed. However, in 3.29, they changed it so that you only need to get to 3 charges or 3 attacks once every second, and instead of 75% increased cast speed, it's now 75% more cast speed, which is a massive change. This change alone basically makes it that we don't need to invest as heavily into cast speed as we normally would with a skill as slow as Flame Blast usually is. In fact, I never played a Flame Blast build in the past because I hated the playstyle. Now I get to shield charge around and just spam the button like crazy though. And yes, having to weave in attacks to keep the buff up is a little inconvenient, but it is much smoother than it used to be, as the buff lasts for 5 seconds and you only need 3 attacks now, meaning a 100% uptime is a lot easier. The problem is when things take too long to die. Sometimes you'll need to weave in a shield charge or two between casts instead of just standing still and casting. But honestly, who just stands still and casts in this game anyways? There's so much you have to dodge constantly with on-death effects and such that the buff basically just naturally stays up while you're playing normally. About that 100% crit chance though, how does that work? Well, like I said, we just need 3 things. Firstly, we need Instruments of Justice with a high crit weapon, or hopefully a wand. In this case, mine has 10.96, almost 11% crit. Second, we need Righteous Providence with at least 200 to 300 of either Strength or Int, and then the other one being slightly lower than that. In my case, I have 361 Int and then 295 Strength, meaning that they're almost even, and it's using my Strength to buff the crit strike chance per point. And then you also just need some power charges, which we normally have one naturally from this node on the tree, but then we can also gain a bunch on kill. But also with the caster master, you gain a power charge each second while channeling a spell. So whenever I have fanaticism up and I start spamming this, you can see my power charges just start skyrocketing, and I'm already at 100% at 5 charges. I think I get it at 4 charges as well, but 100% spell crit. Super, super easily. The way I was originally going to play this build was with power charge stacking and avoid battery one with a badge of the Brotherhood, and then get Rattle Catches and Patience late game. However, in Path of Building, it showed my damage was much higher with just a solid fire damage wand like this one. And since we naturally get access to Battle Mage in the Ascendancy from this node in the Ascendancy right here, the prerequisite to both of these, uh, having just inherent damage on the wand, added damage on the wand, actually is super helpful for our damage. In fact, I considered using a staff or other high elemental DPS weapon for this, but the base crit chance on wands is so innately high that it's way better and easier to cap our crit chance. I do look forward to getting my hands on a Relicash though, when they drop in price a bit lower or I get more divines. I've been pretty unlucky this league, and I've only gotten one Divine Orb from a message in the bottle. If I do get one, though, I'll make sure it's the Frenzy version. This way, with Badge of the Brotherhood, I can always count as having maximum Frenzy charges based on my maximum power charges with the Relic Keshes and Patience in this. Should be 6 power charges and 6 Frenzy charges at this current point in the game. Then combined with Fanaticism, my cast speed and damage absolutely skyrockets. Also, it will allow me to use a Timeless Jewel for Inner Conviction. The reason I can't use it right now is because I need Frenzy charges, and it makes it so that we earn power charges instead of Frenzy charges. However, with Relicash, that doesn't matter, and I won't need to worry about generating them anymore with Blood Rage either. I can just always count as having the Frenzy charges, so it doesn't even matter if I'm generating power charges instead. Alternatively, you could use a Spell Slinger setup with Frenzy and whatever curse or spell you want with that. I was using that to level. It was pretty comfy and makes total sense with Fanaticism attack weaving if you're just spamming Frenzy between self casts. But I found it to be unnecessary as I was also shield charging a lot to move around, and that alone would proc the buff for Fanaticism. Defense wise, I'm trying this Dawnbreaker thing with a Determination Aura and a lot of max fire res, as well as a Ruby Flask for more fire res. We get up to 85% max fire res. I only recently managed to cap my chaos res, and I also have immune to shock from Tempest Shield, and immune to chill and freeze, as well as immune to burning ground and less effect of ignite. I would like to have a little bit more life and energy shield, but this is about as good as it's gonna get until I get more currency. These cluster jewels on my passive tree, by the way, are extremely helpful, especially Doriani's lesson for elemental damage leech as life, as we are just spamming the hell out of these huge damage hits with Flame Blast, and then we get 5% instant leech from this node down here, from this mastery, which we also get spell damage leech as energy shield. So I'm leeching both energy shield and life with both of these. This is really necessary, I think, because we are using Blood Rage, which just drains our ES and then our life if we don't have ES up, which can be annoying. But I've noticed that with both of these, I can kind of manage to keep both of them up if I'm just always hitting something with my spells. Corrosive Elements is really nice because we don't have any way of applying fire exposure, as I keep getting really unlucky with my my glove and chance from Eater, Exarch, whatever. So I just grabbed Corrosive Elements to make that a lot easier. 25% chance to apply fire exposure on hit with fire skills. And then these nodes for the channeling stuff is really nice because we get crit and crit multi here. And then this one lets us get 25% chance to gain a endurance charge while we're channeling Flame Blast. And it's actually not as often as I would like it to be, but we do get one every now and then. I think since we have so much cast speed, it actually makes it harder to proc it because we're like, I don't think I'm even casting for a full second sometimes. So maybe I am, yeah. We're up to 3 now. But sometimes I'll go like a whole map with only generating like one of these, and it's kind of annoying to get to 3. But it is still really helpful just even having just one endurance charge for the physical damage reduction and everything. Also, the biggest star of these changes, though, isn't even Flame Blast of Celerity. It's actually Evolve Flame Blast. This thing absolutely deletes bosses, especially map bosses. Just proc a flammability with, for me, I'm doing that with Orb of Storms. Hit them with a Flame Blast of Celerity to get them to burn slash ignite, and then cast Fall Flame Blast, and it basically just deletes the character from existence. Hell, even on Eater Exarch, you can chunk them pretty hard if you can get a Scorch from the shield, as well as a shock on there right before using this with a flammability. It just chunks their HP down. Also, this technically isn't even my final form for the build. I plan on swapping to an Energy Blade, Archmage, Mind Over Matter, Mind Over Matter low life build, where we convert at least half of our Energy Blade's damage to fire damage, and thanks to Battle Mage, all that lightning to fire is being directly put into our spell damage. The numbers seem insane, but it's going to be a very expensive build, as I need to have at least 5,000 energy shield to really outscale my current setup. ideally getting a lot more than that, but I'm not an expert in energy shield builds at all. So yeah, that's the build so far. I look forward to taking it to greater heights. This is probably my favorite and best build I've created from scratch on my own, and it was originally meant to be a Frostbolt Ice Nova Archmage Spellslinger self-cast hybrid build that I tested pre-league launch. I might try that out too with the new Fanaticism changes, as it felt good already with the old change or with the old Fanaticism. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video. I really want to hit 500 subscribers before the end of the year. We're so close. Bye.